Hey everyone, this is Carmel Kemp, and today on Creating Life Consciously, I am thrilled to be speaking with Tārā Bianca. Tārā Bianca is a love activist, author, speaker, and leader in transformation. Her mission is to awaken love into the world, as well as to inspire humanity to awaken and ascend to the power of love, joy, peace, and equality, and to come home to the deepest, most divine truth, their beingness. Tārā combines over 25 years of research, teaching, speaking, and private coaching experience with expertise in healing the mind, body, and soul to help people revolutionize their life for success. Her multidisciplinary approach guides people through quantum shifts to access their ability to create a life at an entirely different level of consciousness. She inspires them to be a source of inspiration for others in the world and to awaken their divine heart to embody presence and unconditional love. Tārā is known for her compassionate, unconditionally loving heart. She knows the divinity of each person she encounters. Tārā frees them to explore life as they choose for themselves, while she invites them to choose to experience their own divine beauty. Tārā lives between the ocean and rainforest in beautiful Vancouver, BC, Canada. Amazing. Tārā, thank you so much for being here. And just, we have no idea where we're going to go, but we're going to explore and wander around in consciousness.
Wonderful. It's a joy. It's a joy to be here. It's a joy to talk with you every time we have conversations. They're great. So
it's been a while.
It has.
It's been a while.
Well, you've been on adventures.
I have been on adventures. Every day is an adventure. Some hours can be adventures for sure. One of the things I think that is interesting, because we are familiar with each other and our connection to the divine and our experiences, and you call it, if you will, understanding of higher dimensions of consciousness. So I'd love to really kind of, start there and dive into that, and, maybe a little bit about your experience with that, and then let's see where it goes.
Sounds great. Well, where shall we start?
Divine heart, divine consciousness, creating life consciously. It sounds easy, but it's not really, because it's
I find that it's easy when you get to a particular place after doing a particular type of work. And what I mean by that is there is a purification process that occurs. And so, when we embark on a journey, we can have states of grace. I've gone into beautiful states of grace where it's like this elevated booster, and it's you have the choice afterwards to integrate it and to do whatever work that you need to do to maintain it. And there's along the journey, of course, when you go into states of grace, there's falling out of grace. And so, understanding how you got to that place of state of grace. And I think for the journey that I've been on, what I've experienced is the number one aspect is repentance, being like in a place of understanding the suffering that you've caused for yourself, the suffering you've caused for others, and having an understanding that you want to create from a different place, that you're ready to create, a life that is as free as suffering, as possible. And that requires some responsibility in your relationships with others, in your relationships with the environment, in your relationships with the divine, in your relationship with yourself. And so beginning to clean things up is one of the first steps you can do in actually right action, right thought. And what I mean by that, for those who might not understand that, is getting in alignment with that which is harmonious and peaceful and loving, at the same time not putting up with bullshit from anybody else, because it doesn't mean just like taking it all the time from somebody. It means orienting your life so that you actually remove yourself from situations where people are harming you, but also eliminating the self-harm. And so choices that you might be making that contribute to you feeling shame or guilt, or feeling anger toward yourself, or disappointment or judgment toward yourself. And so these are all little places where you can start cleaning them up. And then from there, there's all the past stuff that you can begin to clear out and to take responsibility for. And there's various practices people can do. Can ask the divine for forgiveness, ask people for forgiveness. There's a process of Ho'oponopono, which maybe some people are aware of, and they can look more into, where you connect with a person and you ask them for forgiveness for any and all suffering you've caused them. And you can forgive them for any suffering that they've caused you. And then I do another extra step where I go to the divine and I say, please forgive me for any suffering I've caused this person, and please forgive them. I choose to free them from any and all debt they owe me, and please bless our friendship, please bless our relationship, even if that person's passed away. And as you do each person, it actually clears up a bunch of things, in this lifetime. And you can even, if you believe in past lives, you can even add on any suffering you've caused people in past lifetimes. And then from there, it's cleaning up your diet also helps, eating real food. And I could go into much greater detail, but I think it's important just to even say that, like, discerning between fresh food that you prepare yourself and packaged food that has a lot of, additives, preservatives, and a whole bunch of other stuff that actually is not meant to be consumed by humans. And when you start to do those small purification steps and start going to bed at a reasonable time, eliminating alcohol from your life, and anything else that's harmful in any way, then you can start to actually get to a place where, as things purify, especially your heart center, as your heart center starts to purify, you actually can begin. Your heart center is your message center, so you can start to actually receive clear guidance in your life, which can help align you on your spiritual path, on your life path, to better opportunities and corrections in your behavior with people and everything else. And it intensifies and just allows for you to be propelled in ways where you can actually then access more and more states of consciousness that expand and mentor you into states where you're vibrating from a different place. And then, even deeper is going into the place of surrender, like surrendering to the divine, surrendering to divine healing, divine mentorship, and from those places, everything that I've just said comes down to choice and aligning yourself with choosing what's nourishing for yourself. And so as everyone begins doing that, or as an individual begins doing that, then their vibration definitely starts to change. And in the beginning, what we're doing was they're purifying the lower, what people might call the lower chakras, or in other traditions, the lower dantian. Then you begin purifying the heart center. And as you're purifying these states, the energy, as you're bringing in this incredible vibratory state, you're actually getting filled up. And you can do energy practices if you want, or you can go out into nature and fill up your energy. And as energy builds, it actually moves up into your higher chakras, and then things open up even more. And meditation's really good, and there's various meditations, and I know you're doing some yourself. That it would be awesome to hear, from you even what you're doing. And for me, I do a typical. There's some gold standard meditations that I do that really awaken someone. I haven't done them in a long time. Typically, I don't need to meditate. You can go into way deeper states. I have friends who go into the yanas or jhanas, and there's also a practice which I practice, which is the everyday meditation, open eye, as I walk through every moment of my awake state from sleeping is a state of meditation, being fully present. And in those moments, you can purify even your own thoughts. And so if like a thought comes up, you can actually surrender it to the divine. You can surrender it to a tree, send it to a tree. You can just simply observe it. There's like so many various, practices that allow someone to actually just get to a place where no thought comes up. And I've been really grateful. I've spent years in states of no thought unless I choose to have a conversation. And it's not even thinking, though. It's a very different state. It's where I can actually participate without thinking. And any thought that does come up is usually pretty random. Oftentimes not even, I think, my own thought. It's a vibration that's out there that I'm picking up on because I'm an empath. And I pay attention in the sense of allowing for it to be healed, whatever it is to be healed, and not attaching to it in some way, unless it really clearly is something that's unresolved within me. And then I again, instead of ignoring it or trying to push it away, then I address, okay, what is at the root of this that I need to heal, that I need to give some attention to, and then it's incredible what can happen. And I've been very fortunate over the years in various places where I've gone into states of grace, sometimes for, a few weeks, sometimes for months, and sometimes for years. And when you get to those places, that's when it becomes easy. And at the same time, you get new challenges and and you get tested. And that becomes a little bit fun and a little bit challenging.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. God, there's so much there. That's amazing. And I love you know, um, talking about the cleansing and the purification process because um, I do um, I do a lot of sadhana in addition to my shamanic practice, having been initiated by Sadhguru. So I do a lot of that. But one of the first thing that I do in the morning is what is called Bhuta Shuddhi. And it's a process that I do that is for the cleansing of the five elements, which is earth, water, fire, air, and ash. And, you know, doing that has had a tremendous impact. And furthering into that, I love it that you met Ho'oponopono because I did study, and it's not something that I tout or will probably ever tell, but I did do the practitioner's course. And it's fascinating to come from a place of understanding and taking responsibility for everything. This is also something that Sadhguru will talk about, is that I'm responsible for everything. And a lot of people have a big problem with that because I think that our understanding of responsibility is taking a little bit of a twist. In sharing, my guru's wisdom is really responsibility is your ability to respond. It's not this heavy weight, but we all have an ability to respond, and my ability to respond is limitless. It doesn't mean that it has to be an action. It can be a thought, it can be an emotion. I can send love to someone across the world that I don't know. And so I come from a place of always, if someone even brings a perceived problem or they're working through something that, that I'm now working with them with, I will always be in the place of thank you, I love you. Because whether or not I am consciously aware of having to clean that within myself, it could be on a very subconscious level. It could be from a previous life. It doesn't matter. Right? It just simply doesn't matter. And so I can be responsible in my ability to respond to whatever situation, health, emotional, psychological, that someone else is bringing to me instead of going, oh shit, blah, blah, blah. I mean, my work doesn't really allow me to do that. And we can do that also from a place of non-judgment.
Yes.
Right? Because once we get into judgment, we're screwed.
That's one thing that I was very fortunate back in year 2000, and I don't even remember when I was 18, 19, decades ago. I was very fortunate. I went into a really dark place. I was opening more and more, and as an empath, and I was really being affected by what was happening around the world. And during the Bosnian War, when women were being raped en masse and men were being killed, and then Tiananmen Square occurred, I was in this place of devastation. I was in my bedroom for weeks wailing, and I was actually quite angry with the divine as to how these things can just happen. And in my quest to understand, and to really take the divine to task, I was disciplined. I was disciplined, and the divine said to me, "This is I allow free will, and this is the doings of humans, and their free will." And then I was taught how to be an unconditional witness, not judging it, not getting lost in it, not just accepting it in the sense of it's okay. Clearly, I was aware of the suffering that it was causing, and I was attuning to that suffering. And so, being aware of it, and aware of the suffering from a place of being an unconditional witness, where there's no judgment. Instead, there is this place of, okay, we are very fortunate, and some people might think unfortunate, because I've had these kinds of conversations with people who are angry with God for allowing free will. And but we are very fortunate because the divine is very consensual, 100% consensual, and is allowing for us to choose whether we come to the divine or not. And so in that freedom to choose, we have freedom to go in the opposite direction. And so here we are collectively having free will, and there are people who are doing horrible, devastating things in the world. And then there are people doing amazing, beautiful, loving actions, and loving care, and which dovetails into like the work that I do around love activism. And so each of us has this opportunity to purify the heart even more, to open our heart, and then open our consciousness through love activism. And it can be so simple. It can be, how you are with your children, how you are with your sisters and brothers, how you are with the clerk at the store, how you are with, anyone who is grumpy with you, angry with you, attacking you, or anything else. And so you can begin just in your personal life, like you said, and thank you, I love you. And it's such a powerful place to be, because it's a place of really being in the power of who you truly are, which is love. And as the more you remember that, the more that you align with that, the more profound states can occur. It doesn't mean, though, that you will, this is a misnomer, I think, in the spiritual community, and the kind of the dark shadow aspect of it, is that some people think you won't experience any hardship or challenges in your life because you're just going to attract everything, super beautiful and everything else. And the truth is the people you interact with are going through their own process, and you don't know how they're going to behave toward you. You don't know what they're going to do toward their own selves. There's, I have friends and family that have been drug addicts, that have devastated their lives. I've had friends and families that have, like, friends who have like completely destroyed their romantic relationships. I've had friends and family who have committed suicide. I've had friends and family who have participated in crime. And so all these things can still come into your life and affect your life. And there are people out there that they're like, oh, I'm not going to have anything to do with anyone who's negative. And that's a type of repression. And it's actually, yeah, you're exactly. And it's like, well, it's happening all around you. So good luck with that, first of all. and second of all, when you get up to those higher levels, you would have no one around you if you rejected everyone who had some negativity or was doing negative things in life. And so one of the things that we see through beautiful mentors like Jesus, or Mother Teresa, or whoever, like, there's all these mentors in the world who actually went out and they were actually specifically working with people who are suffering, specifically working with the most lost people in the world. And so, from one end of the spectrum of being a love activist in your immediate family and friends group, there's also stepping into service where you actively go out and you address some of the major concerns in the world, which is like clean drinking water for everyone, food for everyone, safe, warm place for everyone, like these very simple places. And the truth is, everyone is wanting to be loved by someone. And when somebody's starving, they don't really feel loved. They're wondering, why isn't someone feeding me? Especially if that group over there has a huge amount of food, and desserts and like excessive food and everything else. And then there's another group that's, getting nothing. Or if somebody doesn't have clean water to drink, it's, or if somebody feels unsafe, they start to go into the realm of suffering, which is a type of disconnecting in their experience of love and from who they actually are. And so we have this opportunity to be love activists, to be aware. There's people suffering in our communities. There's people suffering beyond our communities and other places in the world. There's people who are suffering within our own family and friend groups, and we have the opportunity to be there for them. And sometimes there's nothing we can do except for just to hold their hand and tell them they're loved and they're accepted just as they are, or give them a big hug. And sometimes trying to convince them to do something more optimal for them actually can be, in the moment, a little bit aggressive and alienating for them, because they just need someone to hug them,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a fine line.
Mm-hmm.
Medicine. One of the things that I have is this sort of desire to fix, and
Yeah.
it's very, very early. And so it's about really honoring another's path and accepting them for who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and holding that space for them, while not trying to say, well, you should do this and you need to do that, right? What I do is I recommend.
Mm-hmm.
There's tools, techniques, and processes. It's up to you to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then looking at it from a place of suffering, and having experienced much of my own suffering, and a lot of it incredibly self-inflicted.
Well, yes, and I think healers do experience an incredible amount of suffering, so they can understand the process of going from that suffering state to the non-suffering state, or less suffering state.
Yeah. And for me, through my experience, in both my personal life, my professional life, and definitely with medicine, is learning how to hold it
Mm-hmm.
without judgment again. So we
Mm-hmm.
come back to judgment again, and just simply learning how to hold the suffering of the world, because there will be many, an enlightened being, yogi guru, will say that part of our issue, if you want to call it that, is looking at suffering as though it's wrong or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily so. It can be an incredible teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as we have that choice and that free will, we can also choose whether to suffer or not. And that's where some people get a little angry and tell me to F off. And that's okay.
Yeah, and that comes back to what we've both said is responsibility. Like there is no one who ultimately can get you to choose to stop that orientation. And what we're pointing at and is that there is this place where things can happen, and two different people can experience them completely differently. Somebody could experience it as an opportunity for growth. They can understand and witness the suffering they're even experiencing from a place where it actually opens their consciousness, opens their heart, or even gets them to move in a direction that's most optimal for them. And sometimes people do need to hit rock bottom before they can realize, okay, I don't want that. I don't like that. I'm ready. I'm choosing something else. And then the other aspect of it is, the responsibility of understanding that you have the power to actually change your point of view. You have the power to change your own energy. You have the power to see things very differently. And then somebody else could have a different experience where it actually completely devastates them, and their life, they just allow their life to fall apart because they feel so wounded. And even though I'm saying this, of course, that experience is acceptable too. If somebody wants to go into a very wounded state, I've been there. I know what that feels like, and I've chosen that for myself at times. And so, but being in the place of recognizing you're 100% responsible, 100%.
Yeah. 100%. It's to really comprehend that you are responsible for everything. The mind just wants to go, no,
Right. Mm-hmm.
no,
Yeah.
no. And I've been there. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? You know, one of the things that Sagittarius is I'm responsible for everything. And you know, this was like 6 years ago when I was initiated, and I was like, wait a minute, because it didn't make sense to my mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the mind or the mental body, because this is just a heap of memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the mental body or the intellect will go, no, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And but what's happening in that moment is that you think that this is me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the identity and the personality. And so if we created this personality and this identity, and then we limit it to certain beliefs, certain structures, certain stories,
Mm-hmm.
perceptions of trauma, and the good things as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this resistance to stepping out of that box, which is so ironic, because really what we're truly seeking is ultimate freedom and liberation, and we continue to put ourselves into little boxes
Right.
that keep us trapped in that paradigm. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you have to develop this willingness to exhaust that paradigm and to choose to do something different. But
Right.
I've created this way. I've recreated this so many times now, you know, and when I acknowledge that and sort of reflect on that, I go, this is totally doable.
Mm-hmm.
This is totally doable. You can recreate
Mm-hmm.
perceptions and the lens, um, challenge beliefs, and that's,
Right.
you know, that's
Mm-hmm.
tricky, because belief is not knowing. We think that it is. Well, I believe this, I believe
Mm-hmm.
that. For me now, it's better if I don't know through my own experience. If somebody asks me, you know, do you believe in past lives? Well, before a window and several windows has opened up for me to experience and see those past lives, before that, I would say, yes, I do believe.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now I come from a place of saying that, well, I don't know. It's better to
Mm-hmm.
say I don't know
Right.
than to say I believe in something without any having experience of it. Because
Yeah.
as soon as you say I know or I believe,
Mm-hmm.
no other possibility exists. And it's incredibly limiting.
Very limiting. I completely agree. And you know, you and I haven't spoken in a long time, but this is the conclusion I've come to many times, and I've reminded myself many times. And with past lives, it's interesting because I do hypnosis with some of my clients, and in doing hypnosis, I've had people kick into past lives. But even with that and experiences that people have, we don't even know if it's their past life. It could very well be that they have an ancestral remembrance within their beingness, an energetic imprint within their cells of an ancestor's past experience that they're, you know, because the energy just, every time people conceive, whatever energetic imprints that are going on or energetic field that they're in at the time gets passed on. And there's so many intergenerational traumas that get passed on to people. And so it might seem like somebody's experiencing a past life under hypnosis, or maybe when they use medicine, but it could very well be that they're actually tapping into an ancestral trauma that they have the opportunity to heal. And so we don't really know, and we can't know for sure because we are not the divine. We're not omniscient, and all knowing. So being in a place where you can surrender to not knowing is a place of freedom. And when you interact with other people from that place, then people actually experience you differently. They experience unconditional love. It's one aspect of it. They experience unconditional uh, witness, someone who can say, well, I don't know, rather than having an idea about somebody and their experience, or even having an idea about your own experience, as you've been talking about. So
yeah, because otherwise, I believe in this. What we do typically is we make a lot of sense.
right.
We'll jump to conclusion and conjecture
Mm-hmm.
about something that isn't really real in the first place. It's just
Right.
exacerbates the whole story, um, and gets us tangled up even more and
Mm-hmm.
more. Um, one of the things that uh, I've learned over time to do is just to speak less. And that doesn't necessarily always mean to other people. It just means just to be here and just to listen,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had one guest and client that came down here for 2 months. We did some really, really deep work. She said to me once, she said, one of the first things that I noticed about you is that you use as little words as possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be very blunt um, when necessary and needed for the situation. And that's the other thing too, is about learning how to discern what is necessary and what is needed for the situation, not entirely based on who you think you are. Oh, I don't
Mm-hmm.
talk like that. I don't say that. I don't behave in this way. Again, we're back into being limited and into that box again. And I kind of want to touch on something that you had mentioned a little bit earlier about, Tiananmen Square and about all of these horrendous things that were happening in the world and in many ways are still
Right.
happening on very many different levels. Is we can look at a behavior as being appropriate or inappropriate for a specific situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fine line between discernment and judging what is appropriate or inappropriate. But I think in looking at things appropriately or inappropriately is a little more beneficial than looking at them as right or wrong, good or bad.
Right.
What we do, though, is that we look at the behavior and the person in the same way, rather than looking at the
Mm-hmm.
behavior in and of itself as being appropriate or inappropriate, and still being able to see the person that may have acted on that and manifested that behavior, and still being able to look at them as divine
Mm-hmm.
and do that.
Yeah. Well,
Judgment.
what I do my best to even see things not as um, even any of that. Where I go to is is it nourishing, and so we can look at war between two nations or multi nations, um, and we can look even at corporations, what they're doing, in factories, or what they're doing to do their best to get control over uh, multi nations themselves. And there's so much that's going on that we can take a look at. We can say, is this nourishing? Is this helpful? Even, is it helpful? Like, is it, and so to go to that place, and then we can start to align ourselves with a greater question, which is, what is nourishing for us? And to align ourselves with a solution, and to align ourselves with where we want to actually put our energy, not from a place of, like you said, of judgment, but from a place of, well, let's choose for ourselves that which is most optimal, which is always what's nourishing for us and for others too. And nourishment has nothing to do with wanting or anything like that. It has to do with like actual real needs, needs for safety, needs for healthy foods, need for clean drinking water. And I oftentimes bring it back to these really basic things when if we're talking about people en masse. And then within our own lives, we have needs for those, of course, but then we have other needs as well for like loving relationships, supportive friendships. We have a need to be in nature. And even if we don't think we need that, our body actually needs that, and so there's lots of different things that can be nourishing for ourselves. And I think that's where sometimes we can get into challenges with even our friends and family who maybe have some major addictions or major issues in their lives. And, when people get judgmental and angry, at the very root of it, they're wanting the other person to choose better for themselves because they love them. And so getting into a place of both in being invitational for that choice, like to choose, but at the same time letting people not choose it. And I remember having one friend who was going down a very dark path that was so sketchy. I'm like, you don't even know how far you can get lost. And that's the other thing, when you make decisions that aren't nourishing for yourself, if you choose anger, if you choose something, you don't know how far that's going to go sideways. And so sometimes it's better not to go on that path. However, I remember a friend talking to me, and I said to her, like, that path that you're choosing, I can see where it's going. And it can lead you to spiritual lostness, which is really scary for someone who's, been opened up a bit. And she said, mind your own business. What if I want to get lost? And I said, okay, okay. That's clear, and if that's the choice that she's making, some part of her is wanting to go on an adventure. And there's probably going to be suffering in it. And when I say that, that's the other thing. I free people to not succumb to what I think might happen. Meaning, when I speak to them about the possibility of what's down a road, I say, it might be like this, not like, oh, you're going to get lost, or you're going to get in trouble, or you're going to get hurt, or something like that. Because it's a predictive, it's almost like a curse. It's a place where it's better to be cautionary and probable rather than for sure. And if speaking for your own life, this is the other thing for like when you program, sometimes people speak like, I always do this or I always do that, like letting go of programming yourself for the future, or being in a place, even when you speak about something from the past, keeping it in the past rather than even in the present. And that way it frees you from your own, the power of your own word to be able to move forward in life. And it's a great opportunity to start aligning in that way. But yeah, for war and stuff like that, we can be a witness to it. We can say, oh, there's suffering happening over there. And, on both sides, there's always both sides when it comes to war. Whether somebody's attacking somebody and they're not conscious of all that's coming toward, within them, what to get them into a place of attack instead of a place of peaceful resolution or whatever else, or whether it's somebody being attacked. And so there's either way, there's an unconscious experience that's happening, and there's suffering on both sides. And when one side can't see, and this can apply to like a relationship even, if one side can't see the suffering they're causing the other side, that level of disconnection is a type of darkness, a type of lostness, a type of suffering. And so having compassion for both sides, praying for both sides, being a witness to both sides without getting lost in what's right or wrong, without getting lost in somebody being evil or bad or somebody being good and righteous or whatever, and just being in a place of not even knowing there, because there's so much we don't even know about the motivations of the people who go into war. And it's never really the people, the citizens. It's a group of people who are, enforcing, cajoling, demanding, mandating that their citizenry do certain things, or manipulating them, tricking them. So there's a lot going on. So I don't know if you have any insight yourself around these levels of.
Yeah, it's again, you can take a look at it coming back to belief and judgment, because every war or conflict probably on this planet has been created from a place of what one believes in versus what another believes in. Religious wars,
Mm-hmm.
for example, political wars, and rooted in the belief that I believe in this, and this is the right way. And if you don't believe in it, then that's the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that happens, we have conflict, massive conflict. And then there's people that are willing to die for that belief. I mean, we know
Mm-hmm.
to be true. Religious wars, crusades, Islam, that are willing to die for their belief. And I remember seeing a video once inside Unity, and he said, if you have someone that is willing to die for what they believe in, is that not a great person? And it's like, what? Right? But there's many people out there that are willing to die for what they believe in. Suicide bombers. It's in many ways unfathomable. And then in other ways, we can take a look at some old adages that in order to truly live,
Mm-hmm.
right? Different conceptually, different places. There was, let me find this, because I found this fascinating. And it was, and I'm sorry if I'm touting Sadhguru here again, but this really struck me this morning on a tweet. And I don't want to get it wrong, so please bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
Sanctity cannot be found in forms or beliefs, but in going beyond our instinct for self-preservation. So in three-dimensional reality, 3D consciousness is very much fear-based. It's very dualistic, self-preservation, survival, and rooted in that dimension of consciousness. That is where we're going to be rooted, and it's going to be rooted in those lower energy centers of fear and survival, procreation.
Right.
And I think that in many ways, war and conflict are very much rooted in that self-preservation, fiercely wanting
Mm-hmm.
to keep status quo. And going to the point of, maybe if people are not recognizing the suffering that they're causing others, I don't think in many cases that they really bloody care.
I agree. I think I don't think they're oriented that way. They're oriented, you're right. As soon as they get into self-preservation, they're oriented around um, their own self, their own family, their own community. There's their own idea. Actually, it's actually preserving their own idea, and or an attempt to. And so there isn't any ability from that place, because it's a very very sticky, very um, strange place that makes it really challenging to access. And so I think the best thing is for someone to really get into a place of having that ability, like you said, to be in a place of I don't know, and to allow yourself to also be free of the influence of your your family, your nation, the media, these things that can really are there often to tell you what to believe and what to align with. And the best gift that you can do for yourself is get into the place of I don't know, and to be aware of what other people might be experiencing in the world, that what other beliefs are out there. And I think in some ways university has been in the past good for that. I don't know what's going on anymore. I hear that it's been corrupted in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of, everything needs to be done this way and thinking along this way. But back in the day, even when I went to university, it was much more open to people learning about various ideas. And even before universities became institutionalized in times of past, you would have people who would guide people like Socrates, and into a type of thinking that freed them to actually question things. And so that's the best place you can get, is in place of questioning, but not from a place where all you do is question. There needs to be a place of reflection, a place of contemplation, and a place of just letting nothing be as well. Because there are people in the world that their suffering is they question everything, and there's no rest for them. So it's
well, no, and then you're engaged with the intellect, which can never know anything. It just cuts things apart. It's the yeah, but what if? It's the why, and basically it turns your intelligence against you in many ways, right? And I think that it's I think that what we do, and so much of other people that are awakening and creating consciously, is about coming from a place of inclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
To include everything and everyone as you, because really at the end of the day, that's true. I mean, I am the cosmos.
Yeah.
And as the cosmos, everything within the cosmos is also what and who I am. I try not to refer to this as me as much as possible. I will go to myself, my human, this one, because this isn't me. It's mine. Right? I've gathered this heap of information, gathered a heap of food that has grown into this, and then I've created the identity and the personality, which is typically what we will refer to as me, when we want to keep me safe.
Right.
But this isn't me. As soon as I refer to this as me, I am in untruth.
Correct. Because we are nameless and eternal, and so even to even associate with our names, it's just part of the personality that we have temporarily allowed to have an experience. And so we have this opportunity to remind ourselves that we are eternal, nameless, and formless beings. So
empty space.
Empty space.
Divine conscious awareness. Which gives you an infinite amount of possibility as empty space. You can focus on any possibility that you want to create and manifest, and you can do it. You know this.
The challenge when you begin to manifest and realize what you can manifest, because I've been there, is that it's really important then to, sorry, say that again?
Yeah, be careful for what you wish for. Make sure that you're clear.
Yes. And you can waste your time manifesting things that seem really cool and amazing, and you can manifest riches, you can manifest everything else at the expense of your own soul, the expense of what might be most optimal and nourishing for you. And so when I started manifesting incredible wealth, when I started manifesting just from my words, saying something, and then all of a sudden that person doing exactly what I believed they should do, or showing up in the way that I chose for them to show up. There's a type of manipulation in it. And so being in a place where once you realize you can manifest really powerfully is getting into the place of responsibility with that manifestation. So what is it that you are choosing? And then the other aspect, which is even, I believe, much more powerful, is getting into a place where you fully surrender to the will of the divine and manifest nothing except for the will of the divine. And from that place, life becomes an incredible adventure that's filled with things that you didn't even conceive were possible. And it's so delightful and so nourishing because it's beyond your comprehension. It's beyond your ability to even, create. And really, that's, for me, that gets to be exciting.
That's absolutely beautiful, because one of the things is that when you're looking at what you want to manifest, what is what is the thing that is trying to manifest that? Well, it's the self, and the self is an illusion. It's based on bullshit, lies. What do I think I need? So, you know, I love that. It's about being receptive and trusting consciously. The divine will bring you what you need. So I don't necessarily focus. I don't focus on things anymore. I focus on qualities,
right,
feelings. How do I want to feel living in my life, right? And I have learned over time to receive, to just simply receive and trust. And you know, in absolute trust, faith, and devotion. I I now look at, and I don't like the word work, but in what I do is just do what you love with absolute devotion. And going back to manifesting, it's not just for me. I mean, there was a point in time in my life, it's like, I need. It was all about this one. Now it is about what is for the highest good and the well-being of not just this. There's a beautiful reciprocity is huge down here in Peru. And there's a word and I guess a concept that we use, especially amongst shamanic people or even anyone. And it's called Aini. And it means for you today, for me tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which means that it's here. I will give to you today, for me tomorrow. You can walk into what we call a tienda, like a corner store in Vancouver, and there'll be nobody attending the place. I mean, you could literally go in with a bag and load it up and take off out the door, which would be very, very tempting to a lot of people in the Western world. But here, you walk in and say, hello, senora, and she comes out and she asks you what you want, and you tell her what you want. There's been, I don't know how many people, you go in and you have no, you go in and they know you, they say, I'm sorry, I don't have any passport for days, but I need some food. They'll give it to you. They'll write down what you owe when you go back later and you pay them. And, you know, to treat each other with that inclusivity. Because really, I mean, you're just another one of us.
Yes. Yeah. And we are all, people can think of it as different ways. I mean, the truth is that we're all one. And if we're all one, we are each other. And everything is, the divine is the great accountant and equalizer. And so regardless of what we think we might get, everything is accounted for and everything's equalized because we're loved equally by the divine. And so it's like a parent that ensures equality. And so someone can think they're getting more, or they can, there can be somebody out in the world that they think that, oh, I'm going to steal this from that person. And ultimately, or have more and not recognize that this person has less or whatever else. And this can be not even about material things. It can be in so many ways. It can be somebody just hiding valuable information or whatever. It doesn't matter. The divine ensures our equality. And that's what karma is all about. This whole concept, it's a way for the divine to ensure that, if this person takes in this way, then there's something equal that will be taken to equalize it, not as a form of punishment, as a form of loving us all equally. And so if I go to a store and if they give me back more change, if I notice, I give it back to them. If they've overcharged me, I say something, but if they've undercharged me, I say something too. And I can't tell you the number of clerks who were like, wow, like you're so honest. And I was like, listen, I'm not compromising my own soul for $2.50. I'm not going to do it for 250,000 either. But these are the important things to think about. Is like, if that money comes from me, it's coming to me in a way that it is not meant to. If it comes to me by accident, I trust If it's not meant to be mine, it will be taken from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember even when I went through a divorce with my ex-husband, I remember him saying to me, I'm going to take everything and leave you with nothing. And I went, at first I cried. I was like, he's so mean. And then I was praying to God and I said, listen, God, if I'm meant to have the same amount as him, then let it be so. If I'm meant to have more, then let it be so. And if I'm meant to have less, then let it be so. Like, I trust that if whatever it is that I'm meant to have, that you will ensure whatever I have. And for whatever reason, I may not know the reason. And so then I went into the surrender of it. And I did everything I could fairly in the process of going through the divorce with him to ensure he had an equal amount to me. And in the process, I ended up with a little bit less, but it didn't matter to me. I actually let go of certain things because I didn't want to be in a particular fight. And so I consented to less in some areas. And so getting into that place where even if, and I use this example specifically because it was a past life experience of someone that I knew, and it was, he died on the side of the road with nothing and just in mud, starving, people who had wealth going by. And that is temporary. It's a temporary experience of a death process of somebody experiencing something, but it doesn't touch the level of the soul that we are. And so even if you end up in a challenging situation, if you end up on your deathbed in a place of suffering, it is so temporary. And to align yourself, if any time you're going to align yourself, if you're about to die, align yourself with peace, love, and harmony. Align yourself with the ability to understand that you can, even in the last moments, let go of the suffering and choose something else as you transition into something else, and be in remembrance of love. Recall love, anything loving from your life. Choose love, call to love. Allow the divine to hold you, allow the divine to witness what you're going through with intense love. And so whatever it is, and I find it interesting. I've never actually said that before, this like end of life thing, but I think it's something that's really important to, as people are getting older, as people are going to be in circumstances, and one day most of us are going to be alone when we die, and there will be no one to help us in our experience, in our transition. Oftentimes people, even in hospitals, you may see this with your own loved ones, you'll be beside their bed as they're dying, but they won't die until you leave the room. And it's a very private thing that seems to happen. And people transition often, like somebody will like I'm just running out to get a cup of coffee, or I have to go to the bathroom really badly, and then they come back and their loved one has passed. And so being in that understanding that most likely you're going to be alone when you die, and how can you practice in your life aligning to the place of letting go, releasing the suffering, and allowing for something much more nourishing to be your reality in that moment as you transition into your next experience.
Absolutely. Well, my end game this lifetime, and I only have one, is to burn enough karma so that karmic bubble gets so thin that I am not coming back. Sorry, guys. I think everything in my power to die the best death possible, that when I carry on, it will be in a completely different dimension other than the physical body. Wow, so much here today, Tārā. Thank you again so much. I'm sure
My pleasure.
For hours, but I'm not sure how many people will just stay.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe we'll engage again. So thank you everybody for listening to Creating Life Consciously. We will see you in a few weeks. Please, if you like this episode, share with friends, comment. If you didn't like it, it's okay too. Sending everyone much love.